I told him I was 12, and all he said was damn, and he proceeded to rape me. My name is Lavinia Masters, and I am a survivor of a brutal rape at the age of 13 years old. And basically, my story is a story of coming from darkness into the light. When I was 13 years old, we had lived in the West Dallas area. We had basically just relocated back to Dallas from Houston, Texas. My mom was a single mom of 4 children. There were 3 siblings at the time. And when we moved back to Houston, my older brother didn't move back with us. So I was the oldest at the time. We had lived with a cousin who had lived in the West Dallas area until we could find our own residence. And on this particular night, it was in the summertime, July 31st, 1985, as a matter of fact. We were all playing, having a good time, and we fell asleep downstairs. The children slept downstairs, the adults slept upstairs. My mom and my stepdad had one room, and my cousin and her fiance had the other room. And as we were sleeping, I remember like it was yesterday, David Letterman show was on, and so we knew it was time for bed, because after David Letterman, the fuzz would come on TV, which means the TV would just fuzz out, and that means no more television, go to sleep. Because I was the oldest, I slept on the couch, and the siblings slept on the floor, as well as my cousins. And as we were sleeping, I felt this pressure on between my legs and this pressure on my throat. I didn't understand what it was. I didn't understand the feeling that I was feeling, but the pressure was someone pulling open my legs with a knife stuck to my throat, pressing down in my throat. I opened my eyes immediately, and as I opened my eyes, I didn't know who this person was, where they came from, what they were trying to do to me. I remember the smell. It was a very distinct smell that he had. It was an awful smell, and to this day, I don't do smells. I don't do bad smells. But it was one of the worst stenches I've ever smelled before in my life that was on top of me. And as I opened my eyes to try to see, the only light I had was the fuzz from the TV in the distance, because it was completely dark. And I was basically like, what are you doing? He then told me to shut up, keep my eyes closed, and if I said anything or if I screamed, that he was going to kill one of the children on the floor. Immediately my heart sank, because I'm like, I'm the protector of my younger sister and brother and my cousins, and I couldn't dare risk their lives, because I was going to scream. I didn't know what was about to happen. So I closed my eyes back up, and I began to wail, in a sense, because I wondered, where was my mom? Where was my stepdad? Where were the adults? Were they alive? Did they know what was happening? Could they hear him? Would they come downstairs? I didn't know what time it was, but I knew it was after midnight because of how the television ended at midnight. So as I laid there, afraid, traumatized, scared, didn't know if I was coming or going, what would happen next, he began to just be real, just abrupt and brutal with me. And he began to rip my underwear from me and spread my legs open and thrust himself upon me. And I knew then that, okay, this is not a good thing that's about to happen. This is not something that I wanted to happen, because I had never been with a young man. I had never been with anybody. I had suffered from childhood sexual trauma, but never in this capacity. So it was very scary for this to happen to me. And as it happened, I began to try to negotiate, as an inquisitive 13-year-old. Well, not necessarily negotiate, but try to get him off of me by saying that my dad had a big gun upstairs, which was not my dad, it was my stepdad. And all he said was, oh yeah, if he comes down with his gun, he said, I got a 45 and I'll kill him. My heart began to sink, and I began to try to say other things to him, and he told me to shut up as he thrust the knife deeper into my throat and continued to do what he wanted to do to me. And so I cried and I cried, and I just wondered. I knew my siblings, something had to be wrong for them to be there on the floor and not hear me or not see what was happening. And I thought maybe they're so afraid that, they won't move because they thought, maybe he would do something to them. And he asked me how old I was. I told him I was 12, and all he said was damn, and he proceeded to rape me. My heart sank because I knew then that this was a true monster that could have cared less about me being a child, about other children on the floor, about other people in the house. And my mind started thinking, are there other people with him? Is he the only person in the home with us? And this consuming fear was over me, but still I didn't I didn't give up. I still tried to talk back to him, give him a hard time. He roughed me up a few times. He hit me, he slapped me, and I was so afraid. I was so afraid as I felt the knife going deeper into my throat as he pressured it as if he didn't care. And I thought at one moment I could make one false move, I could possibly be out of here. And before he threw me face down into the couch, he asked me to suck his, and I hate that phrase today. I refused. I utterly refused. I'm like, this is, and I know it sounds crazy, but I thought this is my defining moment. I will live or die because I'm not about to do that. I don't even know how to do that to anyone. And then the stench that you carry on you, the way that you come in to my home and to my window and just bogart me and put my life in jeopardy and my family's life. This is it. This was it for me. So he threw me down into the couch. And at that moment, I didn't know what was going to happen next. I couldn't hear anything. My siblings, nobody screamed or cried. And I'm just wailing silently to myself. A few moments later, I heard him walk into the kitchen. And as he was in the kitchen, I don't know what he was doing at the present time, but I heard cabinets open. I heard the refrigerator open. I heard other doors open. And I heard the back door open. And I didn't know. I said, oh my God, he's letting someone else in the house. And I just laid there because I was facing the opposite direction. So I couldn't see, where he was. The kitchen basically was behind me. And as he was in the kitchen, he was in there, I don't know, I want to say about 10 minutes. And so I just laid there not knowing what was going to happen next. The stairwell was in the opposite direction. And I thought if I ran up the steps to get my family, he could possibly do something to the children. I laid there a few moments more and I heard the back door close, the back screen door. He came through the front window, but he left out the back screen door. And as he left out that back screen door, I laid there a few moments more because, again, I'm thinking, is this a trap? Is he waiting on me to move? And after he left, a few moments more, the calmness that was in the room when I went to sleep with the fuzz came back. And I realized it. I said, I think that he's gone. So in that moment, I shot upstairs and I ran. As I got halfway, I'm screaming, Mama, Mama, please help. Somebody just raped me. And I screamed so loud because I thought if I scream really loud with the back door still open, that if somebody else is around, they will hear me and he won't come back or he won't bring his gang or whatever was happening. After that scream, my mom was coming halfway down the stairs and I'm not realizing how I'm looking, but I'm like bloody, a scar in my neck and blood everywhere. My clothes are torn, my hair is all over my head. And my mom, she screamed a scream that I will never forget, that literally pierced my soul to hear her scream this way. We called the police out that particular night. I don't know how long it took for them to get there. We didn't have a phone. We went to the neighbor's apartment to use their phone. But when the police got there, I call that my second moment of trauma because it's almost if the police didn't believe what happened to me. No matter how bruised I was, how traumatized I was, how dirty I was, my mom wouldn't let me bathe. She wouldn't let me do anything because obviously she knew that they needed the evidence. And the cops were there and they questioned me like it was something I had done wrong. They looked at me right in my face and they asked me, are you sure it wasn't your boyfriend? Are you sure you didn't let him through that window? And are you sure you're not having sex and don't want your mama to know? I was devastated. And to this day, that still disturbs me that they had the audacity to ask a 13-year-old child these questions. It was at that moment that I believe they planted the seed of not believing in my family. Because over years, even though we went to the hospital, we did the same exam with sexual assault exam. We had the rape kit done. They wouldn't allow my mom in there with me to do the exam. They had me in the middle of a hallway on a gurney. People walking through the hospital looking at me as if I had did something wrong. I felt like a common criminal. And I was the one that was brutally raped. After all of this happened, nothing else happened. Nothing else happened. Absolutely nothing. I went on with my life in total darkness. No counseling, no therapy, no follow-up. How are you? I don't trust any man because I didn't know who this man was that came through my window. I didn't even trust my dad anymore. I didn't trust my stepdad. I didn't trust anybody around me. I didn't feel safe around anyone. I went back to school. I left school a straight A student. I went back to school. I had got accepted into Law Magnet before all of this happened. I went back. I was a totally different person. I was angry. I was bitter. I was angry with the counselors because I was reaching out for attention without saying what happened to me. And instead of them taking my hand and camping me, they were like, I feel sorry for your mother. You are a troubled child. And that angered me more. I honestly said that I began to hate people. I said, I hate people because people only think of themselves. They don't care about others. They don't see beyond the pain that someone is going through. And so I contemplated suicide. I tried to take my life. I did a lot of things that I'm not happy. I'm proud of it all, but I'm grateful that I'm still here and I'm still alive, because during this journey, I met my husband at 18 years old, and it was just an amazing thing. And I'm still married today, 34 years later. It was just an amazing thing to encounter him, because for once I finally felt safe. It's like he was a godsend to protect me. And he did just that. He still does that. But I realized I still had a lot of trauma. I still had a lot of baggage. I still had a lot of pain. And I was still in a lot of darkness. But he saw the potential in me. So I knew I had work to do. And then we got pregnant. We had our son. And I really knew I had to fight, because I didn't want to put all of that on this new baby that's in our life and have him traumatized and have him feeling victimized because of my new normal, my way of living now. Because when I tell you I didn't want windows, like I'm sitting behind a window, I didn't do this. I didn't want a house with windows in it. I didn't do windows. I mean, total paranoid. I didn't like people walking up on me fast. You couldn't cover your face around me. I had to always, and I'm still that way now. Now is more awareness. I have to see you. I have to make eye contact with you. I'm always aware of my surroundings. But before, it was pure paranoia that I lived in, and not trusting absolutely anybody. And so I had to fight. I had to fight for me. I really had to fight for me and my son and my husband, my marriage. I had to fight to live, because that darkness was so scary. And I felt like I was always under constant attack. I lived for years of nightmares of this guy coming back through my window to attack me, because he told me that night that he knew my family and he knew where I was, and that if he saw the police come to the house, that he would come back and kill us. And I'm 13. In the back of my mind, even though I didn't go back to the house that night, my aunt allowed me to come live with her. It still played in my mind, did this guy really know us? Because how did he, just randomly come through my window and choose to rape me, out of, all the project units that was there. And he chose me. And on this night, a random man came through a downstairs window in our house that night. And I don't know who he was, where he came from, and how he made the decision to choose me to sexually assault. And basically, after the assault, I heard absolutely nothing for over 20 years. I heard nothing. I'm now married. I have a family. I'm trying to navigate life. I'm trying to go through my healing processes, and still nothing. In a sense, it's like you become detached from reality, and you begin to wonder yourself, did that actually happen to me? Because you hear rumors in the family that maybe she did allow someone to come in, and maybe she was having sex, and you begin to question yourself, because the system is not on your side. When he was on top of me, when he was raping me, he told me that he knew my family, and that if I called the police, and he saw the police come over, he would come back and kill me and my family. It was interesting when he assaulted me. Like I said earlier, I was that, I don't know what the word is, that 13-year-old. I was trying to, I don't want to say negotiate, but I was trying to distract him, or to figure out a way to make him leave me alone, to get off of me. So we went into different conversations where he would ask me things, or I would ask him, and it was aggravating him. I was really making him angry because I wouldn't shut up. But I figured if I could keep talking to him, that he would eventually stop and leave me alone. I think I had that effect on everybody else in my family. I I would talk a lot, and they and they would be like, "Go away," or they would leave me alone. But it didn't work with him, and so I told him about my dad had a big gun. I said other things to him. I don't fully remember everything, but I remember that part because I told him, we're going to call the police. Leave me alone while you can, and none of that worked. None of that worked. He could have cared less what would have happened. As he went through the cabinets, I didn't know what he was doing in the kitchen, but it was a moment of silence that came over the home like it was before he came into the home. And after I heard the back door slam, and I realized then he had left, and I turned my head to the side to look around to see if I could still see the shadows moving, and there was nothing there. And that's when I ran upstairs to my mom screaming that someone had just raped me. We later realized once the police had arrived that he had went in there and made him a sandwich, is what he did. That's what all the rambling and everything was. He had made him a sandwich. And I guess all of that, as I got older, when I looked at that, that's what I think that's why I tell the entire story that way, is because it's the audacity that he did all of that. So I thought maybe he did know us, or maybe he was familiar with the family, or maybe he had been in the home before, because like I said, it was my cousin's home, and maybe it's someone that she knew, but it was just the fact that he went and did that and felt comfortable enough to stop and make a sandwich after you brutally rape somebody's child and walk out the back door. When I was 13 years old, we lived in the West Dallas area with my family, and one night as I was sleeping on the couch, and my siblings on the floor, my mother and my stepfather, along with my cousin and her fiance, were sleeping upstairs, and someone entered the downstairs window and brutally raped me at knife point. After the police arrived and took me to the hospital, we went to Parkland, and as we're in the hospital, they had me on a gurney in a hallway, which was very uncomfortable, very, just to me, just disrespectful for someone to be raped and people walking by. The police are still questioning me, wouldn't allow my mother to go back with me. As I went into finally with the doctors to do the rape exam or to complete the rape kit, back then that process took about 6 to 8 hours to do that. Very evasive, sticking, probing, needles, questions. It felt like another victimization after what I had just been through. And I felt dirty and nasty because I couldn't bathe, I couldn't wipe up. And I had to just sit there and endure it and cry until they finished the work. And then for them to do all of that and not do anything with my evidence was very disheartening to know that they weren't even looking for me or my perpetrator at the present time, and that my evidence was sitting on a shelf. And so basically that's how I began my fight for not just other victims, but for the rape kit backlog, when I found out that there were thousands of kits on the shelves along with mine over 20 something years later, when I wanted answers to find out what exactly happened. Was this guy real? Was this something that I made up? Because now, as a victim, and how society basically blames us or don't believe us, no matter how heinous the crime happened to us, you begin to do the same thing. But when I realized my kit was on a shelf along with over 20,000 in Texas, that's when I began my fight to find out not only who it was that raped me. I was told that if he was not a registered sex offender, I may not have any answers. But because of CODIS, he was a felon. I was able to identify him over 20 something years later and realize he was a serial rapist. That was disheartening to know, because he was able to rape me and then assaulted someone else 8 months later, and they caught him but still didn't tie him to my assault. He served a prison term, he got out, and he raped again and still didn't tie me to my case. And so I missed 2 statute of limitations. And even though I knew once we finally identified the rapist that I couldn't prosecute, I made a decision that it was something I was supposed to do with this. And that's when I began my fight for other victims in the rape kit backlog. And that's why I'm here now with the Lavinia Masters Act in the state of Texas to curb the rape kit backlog for victims of sexual violence. But to live that experience, that darkness, is not a good space. It's not a healthy space for any victim of sexual violence. And I knew that I had to go back and I had to help rescue others. So that's why I'm here today. To me now, it's like it's just a story because it's not darkness for me anymore. It's light to hopefully help other victims in this arena. I feel like they believed me in the beginning, and to feel dirty and to have your innocence taken away from you, and not have control over anything, and not know if you're going to live or die, to see the next moment, and to be slapped around and thrown down, and I weighed every bit of, about, if I weighed 100 pounds compared to this monster, was not a good feeling. And to survive it and to be able to come from that darkness and to help give light to others means the world to me. And so that's why I'm here, and that's why I do the work that I do, and I'm honored to do it. Getting that rape kit done, or that sexual assault exam done that night, was one of the most atrocious things to happen to me after the assault itself. It was very invasive. The poking, the probing, the needles, the picking, the being re-examined, messing with your privacy again, asking you questions, and having that to sit on the shelf for over 20 something years is even more devastating. And I don't wish that on anybody. There was not a class or a conversation that they had with me. This is what's going to happen next. But I'm glad that it did happen, because that's how we were able to identify the perpetrator. The Lavinia Masters Act is an effort to eradicate the rape kit backlog in the state of Texas. At the time when I found my kit, it was among 20-something thousand kits on the shelves, which meant there were over 20,000 other victims who basically were going through the same thing that I went through, were raped and had no idea who it was who raped them. We had the DNA evidence. So with the rape kit backlog and the Lavinia Masters Act, it gives that DNA evidence a timestamp now, versus the state of Texas would not allow the statute of limitations to be lifted completely. So what happens now, there is a window that once that evidence is ran, it has to, first of all, it has to be ran in 90 days, versus before the clock started as soon as they turned the kit in. So my clock started the night of the assault. Now the clock doesn't start until that DNA is ran. So say someone is sexually assaulted now, and if there is a backlog or a delay, we're supposed to have it done within 90 days. But if we go over that 90 to 120 days, that clock still doesn't start until the DNA. Once the DNA is ran and put into the system, now we have a 50-year window to try to identify that perpetrator, which is excellent, because if he decides that I'm not going to do anything else for a while, or it's not in the system, within a 50-year window, we're most likely going to get a hit if he's still alive, or if they're still alive, if they're still committing these type of crimes. It also gives us a tracking system, where I was in the dark for so long because I had no answers. Now, a survivor of sexual assault, with the tracking system, they can actually update online of what's happening with their kit, with their perpetrator, the status of everything, every step of the way, which I feel is so empowering. But it's so much with the Lavinia Masters Act, the kit, and it really is to help in the justice system, but basically empower that victim at the same time. But after the work that I have done, he is now a registered sex offender. So if he gets out of prison, he's still in prison, and that's because we protested, and that was in 2006, and his parole has been offset every 2 years. So I still get to track him, and honestly, he doesn't bother me anymore, but they still notify me every 2 years, myself letting him know his parole has been offset, so he's still behind bars. So it's a beautiful thing for survivors of sexual violence to have this power, because when you are raped, you are violated, you feel like everything is stripped from you. So that's basically what the Lavinia Masters Act does. So as of today, Lavinia Masters is living her best life. And I say that because honestly, I thought I would never be here. I am now a life coach. I am a consultant. I consult producers on how they do TV shows when it comes to being trauma informed and survivor centered. I teach police station, police officers, law enforcement, first responders how to approach survivors of sexual violence. I have obtained my honorary doctorate for my humanitarian work. Amazing. And it's not just the awards and the recognition, it's the idea of knowing that I found my voice, and my voice has opened up so many doors for me of not being that victim anymore, of me moving beyond that fear. Don't be ashamed. Don't that shame doesn't belong to you. Shame on him that he has to crawl through windows and rape innocent children at knife point. Shame on him. And that's my only prayer, is that every victim of sexual violence do the exact same thing and find the power in your voice so you can shine your light. The thing about my husband was, the night I met him, I was out with the same cousin we used to live with. Now she was living with us. We went out and we got stranded. And my husband was a friend of one of the friends that was with us. And he said, "Oh, I got this nice brother that can take you home." I didn't want to ride in the car with strangers. My cousin, she knew, so she was like, "It's going to be okay. I'm there. We're going to all get in the car, with this guy." And I was a nervous wreck. As he took us home, he was real calm. He was real polite. He was like a perfect gentleman. My cousin had wanted to go to another space, which was in the West Dallas area, where I was raped, and my anxiety set in. And he was like, and I really felt safe with him. And too late, he saw that something was not right with me, and he asked me what was wrong. And I was like, nothing. And he kind of took me to the side, and he took me to the gas station to get me something to drink, because I'm like, I'm just thirsty. And before I knew it, he was saying all the right things, and I was confused. I was like, oh my God, I don't know this guy like this, but I'm feeling safe with him. And then finally I told him what happened to me, and he said all of the right things. And it was just something about him saying that I was safe with him. He would protect me. He got home that morning. He had called all day. My cousin had gave him my number, and he wanted to see me again. He still didn't take advantage of me, because I thought he would definitely take advantage of me, because now he see I'm vulnerable and I'm weak. And I was afraid at the same time, but I made my mind up. If he tried something, I was going to hurt him. I was going to fight him the best that I could, but he never did. And we made it home safely. And when he wanted to see me again, I was shocked that he did. He was blown away by my honesty. He was blown away by my transparency. And I believed it. And so here we are 34 years later, and he held true to his promise, protecting and taking care of me. And he told me that's why God sent him my way, that night, that he purposely loved me through my pain. And many survivors, you have that opportunity, but you have to be willing to open up and be vulnerable and be willing to share and just give out the nasty. But I need you to find your pathway of healing, of your journey. You don't have to stay in that darkness. Being a victim is not the ending for you, and you have a choice. And I just pray that my voice is heard and somebody can listen to that and begin to pick up their pieces and walk out of that darkness with their light.